guys, welcome back to my channel. In IELTS Writing Task 1, our main task is to describe data. Some data involves numbers, while others involve percentages. Percentages are not only seen in pie charts, but also in line graphs, bar charts, tables, and mixed charts. In this video, I will share advanced vocabulary and sentence patterns for describing percentages. Using varied vocabulary is crucial for achieving a high lexical resource score. We will cover 4 main parts. First, basic vocabulary. Second, basic phrases. Third, advanced comparative sentence structure. Fourth, advanced adjectives and adverbs. Part 1, basic vocabulary. First, percentages can be written in 2 ways. The number with the percent sign, like this. The number followed by the word percent. In sentence, we can say 10% people prefer tea to coffee, or 10% of people prefer tea to coffee, or a minority of people, 10%, prefer tea to coffee. Here is a tip. Parentheses can be used to show percentages without needing to read them loud. Second, the synonym for percentage is proportion. These 2 words can be swapped to add variety. In sentence, we can say, the percentage of people who prefer tea has reached 10%, or the proportion of people who prefer tea has reached 10%. Third, fractions for percentages. Some percentages have specific fraction-based synonyms, such as 20% and a fifth, 25% and a quarter, 33% and a third, 40% and 2/5, 50% and half, 75% and 3/4. Each pair of words can be swapped. For instance, we can say, a fifth of the participants preferred using online resources for study. And we can also say 20% of the participants preferred using online resources for study. A quarter of the total sales came from North America. 25% of the total sales came from North America. Now part 2, basic phrases. Describing percentages in pie chart is slightly different from other types of charts. There are 2 main ways to describe percentages. First, describe as a data point. Second, describe as the segment. Let's look at the first one as a data point. Percentages can be described as a special data point in all kinds of charts, including pie chart. For data points, we can use phrases like at, with, by, from, to. Like we can say at 10%, with 10%, by 10%, from 10% to 20%. When swap these phrases, pay attention to the sentence structure. For instance, we can say the percentage of coffee drinkers remained stable at 10%, and with 10% of population preferring tea, it was a minority choice. The percentage of tea drinkers increased by 10% over the decades. The percentage of tea drinkers nearly doubled from 10% in 2010 to 20% in 2020. Second, as a segment in pie charts. Percentages in pie chart often represents a segment of the whole. For describing the segment, we can use phrases like account for, make up of, constitute of, comprise of. All these phrases are synonymous of each other. We can swap them directly. For example, tea drinkers accounted for 20% of the total in 2000. Tea drinkers made up 20% of the total in 2000. Tea drinkers constitute 20% of the total in 2000. Tea drinkers comprised 20% of the total in 2000. All these phrases are describing percentages as a segment of the whole. Do you think it's too simple? How to upgrade the sentence structure to Mat 9? Easy. For percentages relatively high and low, we can use terms to highlight their prominence and insignificant. So here is my advanced phrases tip. First, phrases for large percentages. We can use the majority of, a significant proportion of, a substantial share of, or most of. These phrases emphasize that the percentage being described represents a dominant or notable part of the total. In sentence, we can say, the majority of respondents, 70%, prefer tea over coffee. The word respondents means people who answers the survey. It's a very useful synonym for people you can use in task 1. Second sentence, a significant proportion of sales came from online platforms. Here we use parentheses to show the percentages. Second, phrases for small percentages. We can say a minority of, a small fraction of, a negligible proportion of, only a few. These phrases draw attention to how insignificant the percentage is compared to the whole. In sentence, we can say, a small fraction of participants, 10%, choose option C. Only a minority of voters supported the new policy. A negligible proportion of people expressed dissatisfaction with the service. Part 3. Comparative sentences. The main task focus of task 1 is making comparisons where relevant. For percentages, we can compare in the following 4 ways. First, direct comparisons. Second, multiplicative comparisons. Third, difference-based comparisons. Fourth, equal comparisons. First, direct comparisons. Direct comparisons means comparing percentages between 2 groups. You can use phrases that highlight which group is larger, smaller, or similar. Use the following phrases to make direct comparisons. Higher than, lower than, equal to. In sentence, you can say, the proportion of tea drinkers is higher than coffee drinkers. Or, the tea drinkers accounted for a large share compared to coffee drinkers. Pay attention here, always describe the percentage with a precise data. Second, multiplicative comparisons. This approach focuses on comparing one category as a multiple of another, such as twice as, 3 times as. For example, the proportion of tea drinkers was twice as high as coffee drinkers, or the percentage of tea drinkers was 3 times higher than coffee drinkers. Third, difference-based comparisons. This way of comparison highlights the difference between 2 percentages. You can use exceeded by or fell short of. The percentage of tea drinkers exceeded coffee drinkers by 20%. Here, the original data might be tea drinkers 40%, coffee drinkers 20%. The difference, 20%, is the main focus of this sentence. Second sentence, the proportion of tea drinkers fell short of coffee drinkers by 15%. It's the same. Last one, equal comparisons. When the percentages are the same, emphasize the similarity. You can use equal proportion, the same percentages, non-identical share. Examples. A equal percentage of tea and coffee drinkers was observed, both at 40%. So that's all for comparisons. The last part, part 4, adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives helps describe the size of the percentage more effectively. Simply divide them into 3 categories: high percentages, moderate percentages, and low percentages. For high percentages, we can say significant, substantial, majority. For moderate percentage, we can say moderate, considerable, approximate. For low percentages, we can see minority, small, negligible. Then let's move on to adverbs. Adverbs help us to make reasonable estimates when precise data is unavailable. For instance, in this line graph, it's hard to figure out the precise data. So, for approximations, we can use the following phrases like roughly, approximately, nearly, almost, about, close to, just over, just under, around, more or less. All these phrases are for estimations and approximations. Why comparisons are important in IELTS Writing Task 1? First, for lexical resource. Using a variety of phrases and vocabularies shows your range of vocabulary. Second, for task achievement, comparisons demonstrate that you can interpret relationships in data rather than just describing individual values. Remember, memorize the vocabulary is not our goal. We must practice using them. When using the vocabularies we learned today, remember to combine, swap, and change. That's it for today. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more practical IELTS tips. Good luck with your preparation, and I will see you in the next video.